the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. I'd like to open up the public hearing for proposed local law number 2 to amend chapter 4 of the Code of Ethics. Can I get a motion for that?
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
Second it. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, so moved. We're here tonight. Before us, we have the Board of Ethics. This is a group of individuals who has dedicated a lot of time, put in a lot of time over the last year and a half to revise our code. It was an extremely thorough process. I sat with former Chairman Egan and Paul Phelan a few months ago to discuss it. We did obviously the condensed version, which I'm sure we're going to do somewhat tonight. And if the board has any questions, concerns, they will ask. This will be a back and forth. I think this was a great idea. It was obviously something we talked about at your last meeting. And I think this will be well received. This was something that's been missing from this town for decades. So thank you all for your time, your effort, and what you did to help brand this town a hell of a lot better than it was prior to your arrival here. So, without any further ado, Chairman Sullivan.
Thank you, Supervisor Cardone. What I'd first like to do is introduce the members of the Town of Monroe Ethics Board. There's myself as chairman. We have Kathleen Ahern, John Best, Anne Marie Morris, who acts as our secretary and does a lot of work, Mike Egan, Susan Pendergast, Paul Palin. Our attorney is Don Ferricks, and also Brian Nugent had come to a couple meetings. He's not around much. He went to the big time. But I also would like to say there were two other gentlemen that were on the board that are no longer here, but they put a lot of time in, and that's Lance Whitman and Peter Neubauer. So first, I'd like to thank the board for all they did. It was a 2-year process. And what we basically did, we organized it, we streamlined this code of ethics, and we implemented it in a fashion to report to you, the town board, to see what you do, to see as you do fit with what comes down from it. Without any further ado, I'd like to say tonight I'm going to ask Mike Egan and Paul Palin to make the presentation because they were the ones that came to you and spoke.
Good.
All right, I'm going to start this off and then Paul will close it out. So, and I'm going to do this in real summary fashion. So if anybody has any questions, detailed ones, you'll ask them afterwards. But I think it's important, first of all, to say, what is a code of ethics? It's just it's a provision of clear standards for employees, officials, and consultants to know the rules. And why is it important that they know the rules? Because if they know the rules, then they can avoid violating the rules, and they can also recognize conflicts of interest coming. And then if they understand what they're supposed to do when they see a conflict of interest coming, they can do it. And I can tell you from being a painfully close observer of town board meetings for like the last 7 or 8 years, the board, the current code, before even this revised version is put in place, was routinely ignored. And frankly, I think it's because those doing the ignoring didn't even understand it. Probably never read it, certainly didn't care about it, and they just ignored it. So I think it's a really important part, and Paul is going to talk about one of the ways to accomplish this, to make sure that those who are under the Code of Ethics, employees, officials, consultants, understand what it says. And then once they understand what it says, I think it almost becomes self-disciplining. If you understand what a conflict of interest is, then when you see it coming, and they're routine, conflicts of interest arise all the time in these situations because we live in the community, right? And we're board members in the community, and we and our family members and people who've donated to our campaigns and so forth own properties. They own businesses. You know, they have interests in the town. And so when a board or employee has authority over decisions that are being made that affect someone's property, affect someone's business, or affect someone's financial interest in some way, you know, they need to recognize, oh, this is a potential conflict of interest. And the code says now I need to recuse myself. I need to notify people that this is the situation. It's not, you haven't done anything wrong. Nobody's done anything wrong. It comes up because of the positions that we're in. I mean, and I'm looking at you people and saying it, but we're all in it too. Any board member, any employee, any consultant. So knowing what the rules are, knowing what to do about them is, I think, 95% of the task. I'll tell you that we did this as a group. We labored through it for a year and a half or so. Brian couldn't even take it anymore. He left our group, went to you. Don stepped forward. It got so excruciating. No, I'm joking. But Brian and Don have been immensely helpful in getting through this. We also had the good fortune for Paul to make contact with a fellow named Mark Davies, who is a long time and well-respected ethics code, conflict of interest board official in the city of New York City. And the guy is incredibly generous with his time. And he reviewed the current code, gave us his comments. He then reviewed our revised code, gave us our comments. So he was really helpful, and he did it all for free. So thanks to Mark Davies, thanks to Paul for getting him. We also looked at the New York State Code because that, you know, has a lot of good stuff in it, and we also looked at some of the code sections of municipalities in Orange and Rockland County. So we had a lot of information in here. And so what are some of the major changes? I would say that the code in general is broader, if I say that word right, more broad. It covers more things, more actions, more cases. It covers more people. And what do I mean by that? Just very simply, you know, when a family member of yours or mine or an employee is the center of some action that a board is taking, you know, then I, as a member of that family, have to recuse myself. I have to step back, not be involved in those decisions to be made. You know, maybe it's an issue of there's a board, and the question of the stipend that this board is getting, should it be increased? That, you know, that's an issue. Let's say that's on the table. Well, if my spouse, my son, my daughter is on that board, I got to recuse myself. I shouldn't be part of that discussion at all, right? And we made that family member definition larger because it was really pretty outdated. And so now it includes things like domestic partners, not to be married, to be a family member, you know? So we made it broader, we made it cover more cases. We laid out some new standards of conduct that weren't there. Like, I used the word recusal here a few times. It really didn't say you had to recuse yourself in the past, you know, incredibly, but it didn't. And so now when you get in these situations, you got to step back and say, you know what? I have a potential conflict of interest here. I shouldn't be part of this discussion, so I'm going to step out of it. So we added some things in the standards. We tried to make, I think mostly successfully, but not entirely successfully, we tried to make some of the existing ones more clearer, however you would properly say that. Because they just get complicated. So we tried to, you know, like boil it down. What is this really saying? And so I think we were semi-successful. We addressed conflicts of interest and really laid it out so people understand, well, what is the conflict of interest? And then what are you supposed to do about it? Who do you tell? And how do you tell them? And you tell them in writing. So you'll see, you've seen that there are some things like that in it. Importantly, we added financial penalties for code violations. There weren't any in it. And it was kind of toothless. And so now, you know, there are penalties that are spelled out that are ultimately up to the board, town board to assess. because we don't have the authority to assess them, but we can recommend them. You know, that, okay, this is the schedule, this is the list, this is what it says for a violation of that order, and we think you should fine the employee, the consultant, whatever, that. And then the town board makes the decision. And we also gave ourselves subpoena power so that we could get some answers to things that, you know, were complicated. And so in general, I think we gave ourselves a little bit more authority, which I think was needed, because the Board of Ethics not only had not even been functioning when we got this thing reformed 3 years ago, it had been defunct for years, and so it needed to get going and it needed some teeth. So that's sort of the overview, and then Paul is going to pick it up from here.
All right. Well, once we have an approved code, the next step would be training. And we'd have to train all the employees, consultants, officers with our new code. Okay, so we looked to trying to find somebody who can provide that ethics training and consulting services for us. So we actually went back to Mark Davies, and he gave me a recommendation as to a Stephen Leventhal, who basically does a lot more of his work in Long Island, but he has provided ethics training, ethics instruction throughout the state. He's been 6 years, he was a chair of the Nassau County Board of Ethics, 12 years a member. He consulted with numerous municipalities throughout the state. He was a counsel to he's an attorney. He engages and provides advanced advice training and continuing professional education programs to municipalities and employees throughout New York State. He's served as counsel to the town of North Hempstead Board of Ethics, town of Huntington Board of Ethics, town of Southampton Board of Ethics, Suffolk, but he's also, he was a consultant in Westchester County Board of Ethics, the city White Plains, town of Putnam, and the village of Rockville Center Board of Ethics. But what I like about it is he's knowledgeable about town, municipalities, and overall ethics within the state. He's drafted code of ethics that were adopted by the town of Huntington. In 2016, he assisted the town of Oyster Bay in modernizing its code of ethics. So basically, he is a suggestion, as a choice to do training for us. That training would happen in the afternoon and at night. We'd have a session both to catch everybody, because that's a tough thing to catch everybody during the day. So you'd want to try to have 2 sessions with this. But that's basically with regards to training. I mean, he has the background. It looks like the resume is very well received. It was very well received by us. So we'd recommend him probably to do training for us. But that's once the code is together, and he would do the training based on our code and municipal law.
Okay.
That's basically it.
I will say, I think I echoed these sentiments last meeting, and Anne Marie, if you could just confirm this. Last year, we had 200 pieces of paperwork that were not completed until July of 18.
Yes.
This year,
This year we're finished.
we're
We
finished.
have 1 or 2 that have
Yeah.
come back, but as far as I'm
So-
concerned, we're there. We've never been this early.
No, and that's great, and we appreciate your efforts with that. Thank you. Anybody have any questions here?
Yes, I have some questions. I see most members don't have the law in front of them, but
It's memorized.
It's memorized. All right, this is gonna be real easy.
Give him a little credit, Mary, give him a little credit.
They've been through this, I don't know how long.
Okay, page 5, gifts. The old code, well, the current code, I should say, we haven't repealed the old one yet, was $75. You decreased it to $50. Is there a reason for that?
Well, most places that we know of, when I know of, it's 50, it's no more than $50. Some are even 25, but it's $50 seem to be, 75, you're starting to get up, I feel, you're starting to get, might start to get questionable things, so, $50 we felt was, if someone wanted to give a gift or something, $50 should be more than sufficient for an official or something.
Okay. See, he does have it memorized. Page 6, recusal. You're talking about donor contributions for a campaign. Kind of in the middle of the paragraph, the donor to his or her election campaign of more than $2,500 within the preceding 24 months or $5,000 within the preceding 60 months. I like that because you're allowing for elected officials who are going definitely for more than one term. So I think that's a very good idea. The $2,500 within the 24 months, I think that might be a little high. Again, that's kind of, you've done your research on it.
Well, there's leeway, but you gotta pick your figure, and this way maybe someone does have someone that wants to give a campaign fund, or someone's really popular and they get it. So
Right, but then you also have the $5,000 within the preceding 60 months. And that's why I said I like that because you're allowing for people who are running for multiple terms.
Right.
So I think that's a very good portion in there. Page 7 has to do with disclosing all land holdings in unincorporated areas of the town and all land holdings in the incorporated areas of any village within the town of Monroe, whether held personally by a family member, joint, and it lists, I didn't see LLCs in there. And that LLC,
I thought there was a.
It would, Mary, it would capture it, if you own more than 5% of an LLC, it would capture that.
it says 5% of an outstanding stock or interest. And it
Yeah,
says,
and that word interest, right, applies to an LLC. So like in an LLC, a stockholder is called a member, but it's the ownership amount of 5% that is the cutoff. And that's a very traditional one in what they call attribution, legally, whether an interest should be attributed to somebody, like they own this, and that 5% cutoff is sort of a general rule that's out there in most such occasions.
I just know the county got in a lot of debate about LLC specifically not being listed in there.
Well, this would, so in answer to your question, if you owned 5% or more of an LLC, then you would have to show this.
We also have a disclosure on LLC.
But Mary, if you want that wording to be in there, an LLC specific, and that's why we're doing this tonight, you can make that recommendation, and before this goes to print, we can have that added to the code, specifically LLC.
But I believe we also have a law that states that if you have we have to name the members of LLCs. So that would, in fact, take it right there, because if you have an LLC, you're doing business in the town of Monroe, you have to disclose the owners of the LLC. So it's kind of overlapping. It gets a little bit redundant when you do too much overlapping. So it's just something to
Yeah, but
bring up.
it's
Yeah,
3
so-
letters, so.
No, but what you're missing is it's on the form that we fill out.
Right,
The
but a
disclosure form
consultant
on
is
there.
not gonna know that.
A
So,
what?
A consultant,
A consultant to the town.
right.
No, they would.
Get the microphone there.
They would, because right now, we don't provide them to consultants to fill out, but once you pass this, then the largest task then would be getting all our consultants to comply with our forms and the disclosure forms. So right now, they don't, but we would if you adopt this.
Right, and that's kind of, where I was coming from, that right now, the consultants aren't aware of this.
The
So, but
consultants
they're,
don't utilize our forms yet.
right,
Yeah.
okay. So if it's not too much trouble, maybe you could just add those 3 letters in there, just for clarification.
We already have it done.
Page 8, council, it says the town attorney shall, it's on letter D. When I see town attorney, I always think of Mr. Nugent, so I don't know if you want to say the attorney for the ethics board in that area?
The town attorney, but-
Well, it's the partnership is really what it is.
right, it's the partnership, so it's one and the same. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have separate counsel, it's the town attorney, it's his partner that's representing us, which is actually working for you people.
Right.
So it's not like it's a separate entity whatsoever.
Okay, so then we don't have to change that.
No.
Under E, qualifications of Board of Ethics member, number 2, no member shall hold office in any political party. Does that mean committee members?
What, the way it's been interpreted in the past, right, is, it would not mean committee members, but it would mean if you were the chairman of it.
Okay, because committee members do have to supply petitions to the Board of Elections.
I agree with
That's
you.
why I
I
just
agree,
wanted
and
to.
that was why it was
clarify that.
interpreted that way when it came up.
Okay. And, again, I think this is great on number 9, on page 9, number 7. The Ethics Board is going to prepare an annual report to the town board summarizing the activities of the Board of Ethics and recommend changes to the code as necessary. I think that's great. I don't think that's been done in the past,
We
and I
do,
think that's.
we do it now.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
We did it, at the end of last
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, but I still think it's a great idea because, you know, in general, people want to know, and I appreciate it. Okay,
Um,
those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My only question regarding employment is if, after serving on the board, you have to wait no official or employee for a period of 2 years after serving.
Page 5.
I'm sorry, page 5, thank you. May represent or render services to a private organization, person or organization in connection with matters involving the exercise of discretion with the town office or board. Now, if a person from the board, a past board member, wants to volunteer and work with a nonprofit or without pay, would that be included as well? Or would it have to go before the ethics board to get permission?
The way this is written, it would include that, not-for-profit, and I'll tell you, Rick, I think it should, you know.
No,
The
I'm
whole
just trying to
idea
bring
is
that out, right.
You know, the idea is that, let's just make one that's probably the most easiest example, right? Like the most obvious, the planning board or the zoning board of appeals, right? Where they can take actions, you know, that, grant somebody a variance or not, you know, that kind of thing.
No, I'm saying if they resign, if they're no longer on that board or on this board, and say they wanna work with the Y.
Yeah, no, and that's a good example, that's what I'm
I'm
saying.
just
So
trying
let's
to
say
get
I
that
was
out.
on, let's just make it really personal. I was on the zoning board
Right,
of appeals.
Right.
And then I leave it. And this provision, which is a standard provision, you'll see it in all codes of ethics, says, you know, Mike really shouldn't now go and represent the Y or anybody else, right? If they're coming for a variance to that board, because
Oh,
he's
no.
got friendships and
oh,
alliances.
that I get, but
You
I'm
know?
just saying, just in general, they may wanna work with the Y, not going to the, I mean, of course, that's, you know.
You're saying,
Oh,
you're saying
you
like
mean-
just volunteer at the Y?
Volunteer
Oh.
or maybe work with maybe fundraising or some other capacity.
This,
Of
they could
course.
do that. This is just saying that in connection with any manner involving the
Yeah,
exercise
previous-
of discretion,
yeah.
yeah.
All right, so I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, no,
on that.
yeah, you could go, I could go work at the Y.
Right, that's what I'm saying. In other words, if I wanted or anybody
You
here
can't
wanted
just
to.
go work at the Y and then come and represent them.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I get that, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, if you had left the board and a year later, you're hooked up with, say, the Y, and you're gonna help them with fundraising or maybe another campaign.
yeah, yeah.
That's why I'm saying probably go to the Board of Ethics for a review on that issue, or for perhaps some kind of assertion that you can or cannot, just to get some clarity on
Well, I
that.
think in this case, it is clear though, I could work at the Y. If I'm on that board and then I leave it, for 2 years, I can work at the Y. I just can't work at the Y on a matter such as where they're trying to get a variance
Right.
from that board.
Right.
You know what I mean? I
I
have
get
to
it.
stay out of that. But other than that, I can work at the Y.
All right.
Well, we're on that subject, if you look at number 3, we can just get some clarification on that same future employment, paragraph I.
Yeah.
That's page 5.
Very similar, very similar. So in that case, whatever the variance was granted while I was on that board, in this case, it was following that same logic that we were just talking about, right? It's not that I'm gonna come and represent the Y in pleading for a variance now, right? The variance occurred while I was on that board, right?
Right.
In number 3, that's what that one's getting at. So I have to stay out of that. I have to say to the Y, I was part of that process. I was on the other side when that was granted. I have to stay out of this. Let somebody else do it.
All right, I mean, because the way I'm reading that is if there was whatever board you served on, and again, I know what the intent is. The intent is to not have people coming back and lobbying, as happens in state and federal and county government. But if you read, the way I'm reading that is that basically, if you have served on one of these boards and now you leave and you go and work for an organization that previously had business that came before the board, you can't do that. And am I reading that wrong? That's kind of just with clarification I'm looking
No,
at.
you're reading it right, and it is kind of draconian. I agree with you. I can't remember whether this one did, you was in the old code
Well, actually,
and we
I'll jump-
left it or not. I don't remember.
I don't think it's as broad as that. I think it's talking about if you have particular knowledge that you've gained while serving on this board, and you have a personal and substantial participation, you walk off the board, you can't come back and advocate against the very board that you participated on substantially, personally, acquired inside knowledge, and you can't use that inside knowledge against the board in the same matter.
Yeah, if
And
I
think
read
it's
that
a-
though, it makes it sound like you cannot have anything to do with any organization or entity that came before the board while you were on this board.
I think the intent of it is in connection with any particular transaction in which you were personally or substantially involved. I think it's limited to those particular occasions where you've acquired the insider knowledge.
All right, I just, like you said, it seems a little broad, and I think that needs to be defined a little bit, and just a suggestion.
Let me ask you,
Number 3.
let me ask you a question in relation to that. So let's say somebody does do that. What's the teeth
Yeah, exactly, that's another.
that you're gonna go after them on? How are you gonna grasp into somebody who, violates number 3?
Well,
or I number 3?
And the way I'm kind of saying is, all right, say I'm on the planning board, and I'm an engineer by trade, and a project comes before the planning board, goes through the process, it gets approved, whatever happens, and then during this company says, hey, we have an opening, we want to, now this is after the project's approved, it's already done, and now it's not gonna come before the boards anymore. You're saying that that person can't work for any company that previously had business here. Because if you read a transaction, it doesn't state, it doesn't state a timeline on that.
I don't think it's intended to state a timeline. I think it's just intended to prohibit the exercise of insider knowledge for personal benefit or for organizational benefit. It's just basically saying you've acquired in connection with a particular transaction you were involved in, knowledge, experience, or whatever else, and now you're on the private marketplace selling it back. That's what we're trying to reach. That's what we're trying to stop.
All right.
And in terms of how you reach it, again, it's a disclosure rule, so first off, you're banning it, but then there's action under it, a report will be made, a complaint will be made, an investigation will ensue. We don't know the level that's involved in it, but you've now put teeth, or they're proposing to put teeth into the method by which you would investigate the the remedies that are associated with it. It could be a cease and desist. It could be a recommendation to the DA. It could be something more severe. It could be directing a disclosure requirement. You know, it could be just one of those various eclectic remedies. But again, this board makes an investigation based on a complaint. This board then would make a recommendation to you as a board, and you would be the ones who would make the determination as to whether or not it's something that requires action. And if you do believe it requires action, it's going to be an informed action insofar as you'll be informed by their recommendation as to what to do. And then you'll decide what you should do with it, a cease and desist, a directive to file a disclosure, a report to a DA if you thought there was criminal activity involved. Who knows?
I think you could also just tell the applicant or whoever it is, the entity, that you're not allowing that person. In other words, you reject whatever it is and say that person can't be involved, and they're going to have to present somebody else to handle it. I mean, that would be the simplest remedy if it was something for a planning board and say we're not allowing that engineer to handle this. So if you're planning on going forward, you're going to have somebody else because it violates our code of ethics to have that individual handle it. Now, let's face it, back at the office, no one's going to know who's working on it, but they wouldn't be appearing before them.
Anything else?
Can I just ask on that same thing while we're on it? And then number one, why is that just non-municipal? In other words, when we say no employee or official shall seek any non-municipal employment with any person or entity he or she is dealing with. In other words, because they could be dealing with a municipal entity, and is it then okay to seek employment if they're dealing with another municipal entity on something? And, you know, whether it may be an IMA or some relationship the town has with another municipality, I'm just wondering why we would only prohibit them from seeking non-municipal employment.
I guess, I don't remember discussion of it, Brian, and I don't remember whether it was in the old one, so I'm kind of guessing at why this stayed in there, that modifier. And I would think that the idea was that, you could see, an official who worked on a board or something here, then doing a similar role in another municipality. And you wouldn't have any problem with that, but you wouldn't want that person then moving off into private employment, right, and taking that knowledge of Monroe's affairs with them and selling it, in the commercial marketplace. I think that's probably what's behind that.
Okay.
Actually, if I can jump in, your current code has a prohibition on soliciting future employment in the private sector. And so I think this was building off it. However, it's a little broader than the current code position insofar as it's more of a blanket ban.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm not, you did tremendous work on this, all of you, and my hat's off to you. I just saw some issues with that might be, that could be an issue down the road, whether it's, legal or not. I mean, kind of dovetailing off of what Mr. Newton said, we've had people leave here and go to other municipalities that are in the same capacity or in the process of doing so. So it's something.
With other municipalities or non-municipal or
No,
commercial
municipalities,
interests?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that kind of piques our interest. But again, you did a tremendous job with it, so not trying to pick anything apart, but just one of the areas that had questions.
Well, it's actually questions you guys will have to deal with in reality when you're reviewing these things,
Right.
If you have a situation
Yeah.
like that.
And like I said, being broad like that, it's gonna create, again, I totally understand the intent,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think 2 and 3 are pretty narrow. I mean, I don't have an issue with 2 and 3. I think that language clearly is speaking about in connection with particular transactions, and that makes sense. I don't think that, honestly, it could be read very broadly when you read that entire sentence in 2 and 3. I think it does narrow it to somebody being involved in a particular, for example, development before the planning board, and then go into private employment about that development. you know, not just with that company in general. So I wouldn't, I mean, I'm not worried legally with the language in 2 and 3. I think it's sufficiently narrow to address what it's supposed to address.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone from the other board would like to add?
No, I would always say that if you wanna, make any changes, and then send it to us review, and then, you know, we can go ahead and get this adopted.
Okay.
And
Is there any, public,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's all I was gonna say,
Okay.
that we should have it at the top of it.
Is it, anyone sign up for public comment?
No one signed up.
Anyone want to speak regarding this? Sure, come on up. Come on up, Sue.
Good evening to the board and to the ethics committee. I have one question that I'd like.
State your name.
Oh, sorry,
That's
Susan Salo. Village. I have one question, if we can get back to the establishment of your ethics board. Under item E, all members of the Board of Ethics shall reside within the town. I'm just wondering why it's being just to that section and not the village as well.
Because the town is in the village, so anybody that lives in the
Village
village.
is in the town.
That's part of
So
it.
you're eligible.
Okay.
Same goes for Harriman.
You have,
Harriman.
I think you have 4 members here who live in the village.
Okay, I don't know where they live. But, yeah, I just wanted to make sure and clarify, because then I think you have more of an abundance of experience that might apply for application.
And it would apply to people living in Harriman too. They live in the town of Monroe, so they would.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. That was my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So, moving forward, we can either choose to close the public hearing, keep it open, until we get the changes, which I think is probably the proper thing to do, council.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything I'd call material tonight as far as the changes being proposed, and if they're material, you should continue it. I don't know that they are, but there's certainly no harm if everybody feels that it's appropriate to continue the public hearing at your next meeting, have a revised version with those changes in it. Don, do you have, or somebody, the changes that are listed so far? You know, and then you can circulate, or maybe just a red line.
Do you feel the changes are, Don, are substantial, that we need to keep the public hearing open?
I would say none except one. I believe Ms. Bingham's comment about whether interest should be incorporated into the section that she questioned about on
LLC?
on the LLC. What had, I think, been the board's intention was that they redefine the term interest itself as a capital I, interest, and inside that definition, it applies throughout the code. Apparently, in almost every section except that one, it's not incorporated in. So I think that would be a substantial change. We should probably.
Which section was that changed to?
This section was to 4.7, which is on page
7.
7.
Oh, excuse me, it was 4.6.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, 4.7 has the word interest there.
Don, what I heard Mary say was that she wanted LLCs captured, right? And really, it's already captured here. What this says, remember now, is that it's any corporate entity. An LLC is a corporate entity, you know? So it's already here, and then the forms that we have, remember the forms, it actually says LLC in it. So I think if we were going to put it in, the words out, or the word, the initials LLC in here, I think it should just go in as an example, you know? I don't think it needs to change the definition, it could be an example of a corporate entity. But to me, that's not material.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
what are we trying to capture, or I guess what is your concern in that's not there, that you don't feel is like, as far as an LLC, what is missing besides the 3 letters LLC, because it says corporate entity, which is limited liability corporation.
I just remember going back when the county had their ethics, and they did not include the letters LLC in there. There was a lot of debate about it, and I just want to make sure that our ethics law sands the mustard, and we can say, yes, specifically LLCs are going to be captured.
My only problem with doing that is then you have to do, in my view, every entity's initials, because you're saying corporate entity, and clearly an LLC is a corporate entity. But if we say LLC, then do we say corporation, do we say, you know, S corp, do we? In other words, like, so then if we're selecting that one out, this particular paragraph, as I see it, specifically addresses family members' ownership or your ownership or interest in a 5% of, you know, interest in a position with any partnership, corporate entity, or trust. So, and I'm not sure what the county issue was, and I don't know that it was this kind of paragraph or what came up there, but if, I don't know how you could read this and somebody argue that that doesn't apply to disclosing and 5% or more interest in an LLC. You know, that would be a very tough argument. If it said corporation maybe or something, you know, as opposed to corporate entity, maybe, but I don't know. I think I would say this, if we're gonna change it, I wouldn't just put LLC. Then we've gotta just come up with better language to cover all entities. Or, again, Don, I don't know what you think, but I just think that it sufficiently covers somebody who would have themselves or a family member with 5% or more stock interest in corporate entity, a partnership, or a trust. I think that's pretty broad, and in this provision, I'd rather it be broad than narrow.
You know, reading it again, I just withdraw that comment on the LLC too. I agree with Brian. I think that the language, are you gonna talk about professional corporations, professional limited liability companies? You get into a whole series, what's the next iteration of the law? Whereas here, it's just a corporate entity, you have partnership, corporate entity, trust, and that's about as broad as you can get.
And we also have a full disclosure on LLC.
Might I suggest this, and sorry to cut you off, we do. Yeah, but that's only for applicants, that's not for a town official.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is, under that law that we did pass, you can still request full disclosure on any LLC doing business with the town.
Yeah, but only if they're coming
Yeah,
to
but
the
if you-
entity. This is about you as
Yeah,
a
see,
councilman.
I'm in an LLC, but I'm not doing business with the town. It doesn't pertain to disclosure.
I understand.
So here's my suggestion,
Only
I
the
think,
form, I think.
to resolve this, we leave the law as written, and then the form,
Leave it
if it's
both
not
ways.
created already or doesn't have it, would specify corporate entity and just put in parens, LLC, PLLC.
It's there.
It does fit.
Okay, so then,
It does fit.
you guys are a step ahead as usual.
If you're comfortable, if council's comfortable with the way it's written, I'd leave it the way it's written.
All right.
It gives greater flexibility.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'd like to get a motion to close the public hearing to amend Chapter 4 of the Code of Ethics.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for local law number 2 to amend the Code of Ethics.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Scancarello. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again,
Okay, so moved. Public hearing is closed. Now we would need a proposed local law resolution, a resolution for proposed local law number 2, amending the 2019 Chapter 4 Code of Ethics.
Yes, Supervisor, just so you know, we have a written resolution in, I don't know if you want to read it, but there is a written resolution for the adoption. Should be in the packet after the local law, should be the next thing after the local law.
Okay. I'll just read the rare,
You could do the be it resolved.
now therefore be it resolved that Section 1, the above whereas clauses are incorporated herein by reference as if set forth in full herein. Section 2, the town board hereby adopts local law number 2 of 2019 entitled Code of Ethics of the Town of Monroe, New York, a copy of which is attached hereto and made part thereof. Section 3, the town board hereby directs the town clerk to enter the local law in the minutes of the town board meeting and to enter the local law into the local law book of the town and to give due notice of the adoption of the local law to the Secretary of State. Section 4, the town supervisor and any town official or employee, as directed by the town, is authorized to take any actions necessary to carry out provisions of this resolution. This resolution shall be effective immediately. So I will make that motion.
Supervisor, if I could just amend section 2 of the resolution before the vote to read that the town board hereby adopts local law 2 of 2019 entitled Code of Ethics of the Town of Monroe, New York, a copy of which is attached here to and made a part hereof, with the non-material changes that were presented to the board tonight.
Okay, with the non-material changes presented to the board tonight. Okay. I'll make that motion.
I'd like to second.
Seconded by Councilman Skanker,
Cologne.
Cologne. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Hard
for
work.
I just want to say thank you to the board for your support in doing this. It goes to the state, right? The next move is it goes to the state.
Right.
Yeah.
They got to adopt it. We have a meeting, not really at our meeting, but we have a meeting a week from Wednesday night.
Okay, because we're most likely going to appoint a new member tonight. He's actually sitting here, so maybe if you want to introduce everyone to him. George. I don't think everybody knows him, but.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
I thought he was talking to me.
George, I'm a
He was your recommendation, so.
Sorry.
So who would you make the recommendation?
George Tanner, I would like to recommend, George Tanner.
Well, no, you could, when you guys leave, because we have to open up,
You got to open the meeting.
yeah, we have to open
You
up the
just want to
meeting.
introduce it.
Yeah, we just wanted to
Yes, George.
introduce him.
Yes.
And you'll tell them our meeting.
Yeah, this is gonna be 5 minutes into it, we'll probably approve it. Unless he misbehaves between now and then.
And then we'll make them wait to the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
All right, can I have everyone take their seats, please?
How soon? Because I gotta,
Councilman Cologne, can we get a seat here, please?
Is that an echo in here?
Yes, come on.
I just.
Okay, we need a motion to reopen the meeting for March 18th at 8 o'clock.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. A couple of announcements. One which I forgot to make at last meeting, I just want to thank the Highway Department for their efforts in the recent snow removal. That weekend was a little arduous, on and off, but thank you guys, you did a great job. I actually got 2 calls on Sunday on my personal phone, thank you guys. So, yeah, thank you very much. And then we had a water main break today, so please thank the staff for expeditiously getting that completed, I think in a little less than 3 hours.
Yeah, that was a quick one, so
As always.
worked out very well.
Yep.
You guys do a great job all the time.
And they're still working on 14 with the tank.
What's that?
They're still working on 14 with the
Yeah,
tank.
I'm just making announcements on that. North Main, I don't know if everybody heard, North Main Elementary was awarded a $25,000 grant for a new playground through their efforts with, I think it was Dannon Company. So it was nice to hear. The kids did a great job. They pushed, and I know my daughter was always on the phone with me, telling me to vote and whatnot. So it was great to hear. Great news for North Main, especially when it's my alma mater. Yes. Yes. Also, coming up on April 27th is Clean Sweep. We have everything in line, everything set up. We'll have some shredding and e-cycling, hopefully.
Yes, we're working on the e-recycling. The company has a massive event in Pennsylvania, and we reached out to other companies, but I haven't heard a solid commitment back yet.
Okay. I just want to personally thank Councilman Scancarello here. He was instrumental in obtaining 11 new sponsorships for Clean Sweep this year.
12.
You got one today, you didn't tell me?
Java Joe's.
All right, good, glad to hear, but thank you, all those sponsors bring in between $100 and $250 each, so it's great work, Sal, thank you very much. You've been real diligent in the economic development of downtown village and the outskirts of Monroe, and it's really appreciated,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, audit of claims. We need a motion for the audit of claims.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Beckelman.
Do we need the dollar amount?
That's what I'm getting right now, Mary. Mary, hold on, Mary. Stop jumping on my rhetoric here, Mary. Sorry, I'm not quick enough for you tonight.
Get on it.
Okay, so the dollar amount, the abstract number is 19-005, and the total of the claims is $380,376.91. So we have a motion from Councilman Scancarello. Do we have a second?
Second, Beckelman.
Second by Councilman Cologne. Do I have a second? Call the question if there's no discussion.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved. Acceptance of the minutes, March 4th, 2019. Do we have a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion.
Any discussion, changes, alterations, revisions to it? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved. Next up is the permanent appointment, the appointment to permanent status of Alexandria Travato in the position as assistant to the building inspector. She's been in this position provisionally since 2017, pending successful completion of the civil service exam and the eligibility requirements thereof. She has completed it. She did finish in the top 3. So it's the recommendation of myself to appoint her to a permanent position. I will make that motion to appoint Alex to the permanent position of assistant to the building inspector.
I'd like to second.
Okay, any other discussion?
I'll put it.
Sorry.
Who's that?
No, Mary Ellen was asking who made the second.
Mary got the second.
Go ahead, let Mary.
There you go. Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved. Okay, Board of Ethics appointment. I received a letter from George Tanner back in January asking to volunteer his services to the Board of Ethics as there is an opening. It says, Dear Supervisor Cardone, I'm interested in serving on the ethics for the town of Monroe. I've been a resident of Monroe for the past 20 years and live in Round Lake Park. I have served as president of the Round Lake Park Association for 2 years in the past, and I look forward to serving on the ethics boards. Please feel free to reach out to me at the numbers listed above. I spoke to George today, spoke to him tonight. I apologize for not speaking to him last week. I was ill the whole week, so he understood because he was getting over it as well. So George would be a great addition. I've known George for a number of years. He's diligent and he will do great work there as well. So I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay.
George, thank you for stepping up. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, George. Okay, I'm going to jump around here a little today.
Trail conference people?
What's that?
You bring the trail conference,
Did I just say I'm gonna jump around a little?
Well, I know,
Again?
well, you know, I know you're a little slow because you were sick, I'm just trying to move you along here.
No, you're digging it deep.
So since you're slow, because you're not sick, that gives me an advantage?
Exactly, yes.
All right.
McGinn, aye.
Yes. I know the Trail Council's here. I had a meeting with Sonia from the Trail Council. Sonia, if you would like to come up, I know that you have a number of representatives here.
Thank you very much.
I know you traveled quite a way, so why don't you come up to the mic here, just,
Thank you. I have a PowerPoint presentation.
She has a PowerPoint,
oh, okay.
Yeah, but I want to show you pictures.
but we're only gonna, it's, you guys are, the audience isn't gonna see it. It's just gonna be you guys.
It won't be on there?
It will be on there,
Okay, so,
but that's how you have to see it.
all right, so can we just angle it on 45?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, it's not,
I think I'll need to stand. I don't want to block it either.
So now the board docs is gonna go on.
That's good.
We can see it.
You can see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or we could put it over there since everybody's.
Well, it's actually for you folks to, a presentation for you, correct? I can film it, then people.
See, you can back it up a little bit. There you go.
Whoa, 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 whoa!
It's all right.
Now you go ahead.
That's good. Just need a little help, George.
It doesn't seem to be connecting. I also think I'm going to.
Well. Is there any power on the monitor? Yep.
Sorry, I think they might have had a misunderstanding and they're not going to do it that way. I don't know why that was.
Okay.
Anyway, just thank you very much for the opportunity
You have to talk into the mic.
Oh, thank you
Hold
for,
on.
oh, okay.
Just a minute.
okay.
So I want to thank you Supervisor and Council members for the opportunity to present the case for the Long Path and the Highlands Trail tonight. I realize that a lot of people see, and quite fairly, a trail as just a line of dirt in the sand. So if it's no good there, well, why don't we put it there? And these two trails are actually quite a great asset to the town. And I realize we've never really shown you what they look like or what is it about them that makes them special for Monroe especially. But before I begin, and I'm going to just get this set up, I just want to acknowledge we've had Trail Conference members, volunteers and friends show up tonight in support, just to show you what it means to them. Would you guys mind giving a show of hands?
Wow,
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Really appreciate it. So you have fans right here in the town of the two trails. And I'm going to hopefully find, we actually tested this, so my apologies, it should not be acting up. I've had, if you want to get on through the agenda, while I get this set up, feel free, and then I'll just raise a hand when I've got it working. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why this is not. Did something happen?
Yeah,
Good,
we can
okay.
Okay, you're up.
All right. Nice work, George. Thank you, George.
See.
Oh, the battery's going to die. You're going to try this one.
Can I have that razor?
Just get it up here first.
Tony, if you don't mind, I'd like to say a couple of words about you setting
Yes,
up.
thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, come on up.
I put my name down for comment, but
Take the microphone, Anthony.
sure. So, my name's Anthony Vaccaro. I'm a longtime resident of the town of Monroe, village of Monroe. And I'm active on the, in our community. I serve the town planning board, and I'm on the Smith Clove Park Joint Parks and Recreation Commission. And I just heard secondhand tonight that the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference would be here. And I just want to express my interest and support in the Long Trail and all the parks and recreation that we have in this community. And I hope that the town board would be supportive and do what they can to protect this vital resource for us. My family's enjoyed this trail for 25, 30 years, and I'm very glad that they're here tonight to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to move this out the way so people can see. So my name is Sonia Mason. I'm a program coordinator for the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. I work with volunteers to help maintain, restore our trails, look after them, manage them, preserve land for them. And in particularly the Long Path and the Highlands Trail. These are the two tags, and that's kind of what they look like in the forest. This actually is right here in Monroe, at the property of concern. So firstly, the Long Path is our longest trail. It's kind of like our mini Appalachian Trail. In its younger days, when not all the land was yet preserved, but they were working to close the gaps. Our vision is to join it from the big city to the big park. Well, the big apple to the big park, I guess. This is an older map, but it just gives you a clearer view of how we have staged the Long Path. Instead of a straight shot, we've tried to incorporate all the pretty scenic parts and the parts that are worth keeping, including the Catskills and several features right here in Orange County. The name was taken from one of Walt Whitman's poems, and the inspiration still, inspires us to take care of it. A more modern map shows its, I should have a pointer here, shows its trajectory now. You may notice that not all the land that red line crosses are green yet. We have many gracious landowners who let us have the place the trail across their land. Some are on roadwalks, and some we are actively working to preserve. In fact, this whole corridor here, the lower Shwangang Ridge, is already, how much of it is preserved, do you think, Andy? He's our trail chair. 95% already has been preserved. So we create parks with these long distance trails, and they've effectively become green corridors that also connect other parks, and you'll see why that matters. So this trail, 358 miles, you can actually take it from the subway in New York. You don't even have to walk across the bridge. Well, you do have to walk across the bridge, but you don't have to start on the other side. So it was begun in the 30s by a guy called Vincent Schaefer, and it's been a over 70 years partnership of many organizations, including Open Space Institute, Orange County Land Trust, and others, a long labor of love. The Highlands Trail is a little shorter. It connects the two big rivers, the Delaware to the Hudson, and it runs across the Hudson Highlands, or the Highlands in New Jersey, which are an important water source and very valued and protected. It's also a multi-partner work of conservation with the Trust for Public TLC, the Land Conservancy. There are many different land trusts involved here. And the latest one, the latest parcel that's been preserved, you will actually be able to see just down the road in Goose Pond, where we were able to remove another mile of road walk for the trail. So it's incremental, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of love and dedication, and it's amazing how many people will come out in support of that. It's been very heartening to see. And we have quite a number of volunteers and growing just for these two trails, who will come and build, they'll move giant rock, they'll get all dirty and muddy, they'll fight off the bugs, just to see this trail happen and take care of it. In fact, we have our two chairs, Glenn Alexak for the Highlands Trail and Andy Garrison for the Long Path North. And he's also our conservation chair out here tonight as well. And several of our volunteers who've been taking care of these trails in person. So these trails are also kind of a big deal. They are listed in the open space plan, which also states, at the end, parks can bolster private property values as well, which is a good thing to consider when people consider the value of development versus leaving land vacant as such. It does add a tangible value to people and their well-being. They also, as I mentioned before, they collect scenic spots along the Hudson Valley. This is a view of Sugarloaf from Goose Pond. They connect over 25 state and local parks, and they also link up with the Appalachian Trail, and the Long Path links up with the North County Scenic Trail. So they form a great big web that gives people lots of options to explore the most beautiful parts of the country here. To show you in Orange County, or that web of red, the Long Path runs from Harriman. I should bring the mic up. From Harriman through up Scaramount and up to the Schwangang Ridge. Sorry, should I hold it like this? Oh, thank you. And does it vanish here? That's all right, but thank you. The Highlands Trail runs up parallel to the Appalachian Trail.
Sonia, you can just push the button and the light will come on.
It's reflecting and it's not, she's not able to see.
Yeah, it's not showing up, but it extends my reach.
Yeah.
So the Highlands Trail goes up towards Storm King to the Hudson River right now. The Appalachian Trail, which you're familiar with, which crosses that way. And so you can see they always form a circle if you wanted to do, take a few days off and do a backpacking trip and see some of the highlights. And the idea, the intention is to connect all these trails, giving people more options and connecting the parks as well. Right here in Monroe is a Google map of the terrain from Black Rock Forest, Scaramount, through here, through Monroe, and then down through Chester. The two trails, the Long Path and the Highlands Trail, meet here because they squeeze through the last undeveloped corridor here. All around, there are developments or properties on parcels which make it nearly impossible.
Sonia, can you just for the board, can you just identify for the board where the Orange and Rockland Lakes are so they have some sort of vantage point?
Right here is the Orange and Rockland Lake, and right here is a private lake, and Monroe Town Centre where we are now. So, and this is the bulk of Scaramount Mountain here, where the trails come out. So the problem is, which you're all familiar with, the latest proposal to create the village of Seven Springs. The trails come out here from this green bit, which is Gonzaga Park, and then they cross through to Orange and Rockland Lakes. So you can see, if they get their town, they will pretty much develop it all, and then our trails will be kicked out of there. This is what the landscape looks like in here. So it's really beautiful and varied, pretty pristine. So another map showing just a closer up of the parcels from Gonzaga Park, and these two parcels, one owned by Seven Springs LLC and the other by Orange and Rockland, are the last two completely vacant parcels that the trails could cross. The trails right now are on Seven Springs Road here because neither of the owners have wanted to give us permission on their land. Orange and Rockland have given us permission, a temporary permission. We would love to buy their parcel, but they're not sure what they want to do yet. These people have refused to negotiate with us. We would love, if there's any way at all possible, to have a little corridor along the back part of the parcel to connect through here. That would be hugely beneficial. Not only would it take us off a road walk, which will, when it's developed on both sides, is not going to be a really friendly place to a hiker coming off Sconomount Mountain in shorts and a tank top on a hot Saturday afternoon. And to provide a corridor would be a lot safer as well. You know, if we did lose this, we'd be forced to go onto Route 44 and 208, which, as you know, are no place for anyone to walk. People drive like they're in the Monte Carlo race there. There's no verge, and it will only get busier as the area gets more populous. It is to everybody's advantage, really, to have some sort of a green link out of the park and through towards the Heritage Trail down here, which is also, it's a narrow corridor, but it's something wildlife even use what they can get, you know, one day when there's just nowhere to go. So you probably don't need to, you probably all know this, you know, disadvantages of having this town. It's going to put a burden on sewer, it's going to pollute water, it's going to be much more expensive in the end to clean that water, more pollution, decreased quality of life. And I know that Monroe residents really value the beauty of the area and the green space. So, you know, that will be gone. So we do appeal to you to help us protect this corridor, create a corridor, negotiate something with the landowners. It's also good for, you know, wildlife, biodiversity. There's a notion in ecology where it's called the island biogeography effect. When an island is further away from the mainland and other lands, it becomes impoverished in species. It becomes less diverse and less robust. Over time, the species die out because they're isolated. They're genetically isolated, so they're more susceptible to diseases and the weakness of inbreeding. So do parks when they become surrounded by a sea of development, and the roads are just death traps to wildlife. Green corridors have been photographed with camera traps and found that they are used no matter how even narrow they are and unlikely. It's also good for the plants because the animals carry the seeds either in their stomachs or in their fur or feathers to keep the genetics of the plant populations healthy too. So that's just another side. But I hope this has given you a little bit of an expose, at least. What are these trails? You know, why can't we move them anywhere else? We've looked everywhere, and this has been the best place, even though it's a tough place to get. So thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Anybody have questions? I have one comment, and you and I discussed this. I've been an avid hiker through Merriman State Park, and to all of you out there who have volunteered on certain sections of trails, let me give the board a little bit of background quick. We were about 3 miles into a trail in Harriman, down in Sloatsburg by their visitor center, and we came across a gentleman who was probably in his mid to late 60s with a chainsaw, and he was sawing a large tree that had fallen down in the middle of the trail, and I looked at the gentleman, and he's sweating like a pig, and I said, how'd you get all that stuff in here? And he's like, I lugged it on my back. Now, he had 2 crates and a chainsaw with gasoline and some water, I guess, and his lunch. So I just want to say I admire all of you that do take care of the trails and maintain them. It's a very dedicated job that you do, so thank you very much. It is appreciated.
Yeah, a lot of people say they're in the best shape they've ever been since retirement, so it's a good thing.
I'd like to follow up if I may on that. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to keep a trail going. I was in the Scouts for much of my young life when I was much younger. Updating trails, you have to put the markers up so people won't get lost and they stay on track. And that takes a lot of doing over and over again throughout time. It's not just you put up a few tags and it's done. Somebody has to walk that full length and make sure those tags are maintained, correct me if I'm wrong, as well as sometimes stop erosion. There's a lot of work that's incurred in keeping some of these trails. So I believe me, I do understand that because I've worked on that when I was much younger, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you. We have a small army of about 1,700 volunteers who do that for 2,000 miles of trails from the Delaware to the Catskills, going on for 100 years now. So
I mean, obviously we can't speak for the property owners. Obviously, you've reached out to them without success, but you know, I can assure you, you know, and I think I speak for the whole board here that should there be a conversation between the town and property owners or this potential creation of the village, we will do everything in our power to make sure that the long path is part of that conversation. And we'd love to see that preserved. And it's common sense, and hopefully they'll see it as common sense as well.
Yeah,
it's good for everybody.
Yeah, we're prepared to offer them a reasonable price, more than reasonable price for it, and negotiate what we can. So you know, we don't expect them to give us anything for free or for nothing. So we understand they're developers. They have bought an investment. So yeah, whatever we can do to get to the table with them.
Yeah, well, certainly make sure that's part of the conversation.
Thank you, and thank you for coming up.
Thank you. Yeah, I brought you some stickers in the shape of our lasers, so you don't forget us.
Thank you.
These are not pocket pudding.
This isn't worth more than $50, because I'll be in violation of the code of ethics here. So.
It's under $50.
It's under $50, right?
The supervisor has blocked the trails, he has to disclose that.
Yeah. I'm making light of it, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Sonny, very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, everyone, appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, Tomm.
Okay.
Rock and roll. You're ready.
Great, thank
You're on.
you. Thanks for moving me up on the agenda.
Thank you.
So the first item that I'd like to discuss is the Food Truck Festival. And I had sent out Food Truck Festival participation agreements, both for the food truck and a vendor participation, which would be tent or table setup. I did have a typo on one, so I want to draw that to your attention. The tent setup one is $75 is correct, and the second one for $150 is incorrect. It should be $175. So if you could make that change on your forms. So I guess I should begin with, we are going to do 2 food truck festivals in 2019. And the first one will be Saturday, June 15th. And the second one would be October the 19th?
19th, correct.
Okay. And the one in June will highlight, what we've done in the past is highlight different members of our community. And so for the one in June, we're going to be highlighting veterans and the flight, honor flight. So we'll be looking for vendor support, and we've already started the process. Sal has been instrumental in getting us food trucks, different food trucks, and we'll be looking for some donations to help support our endeavor as well.
Yeah, we are actively seeking sponsors now, so we can
Sponsors.
start that.
M&T has already secured the premium
Great.
sponsor again. So.
Great.
Yeah,
And
I believe I have Beer World
For
in
another one.
Monroe
Great.
for the beer tent.
Every time we get a sponsor, that means it's less coming out of the budget, and we're able to, the goal here is to cover our costs if we can completely. Last year, our costs were less than 6,000, and our revenues were almost half of it. So we did quite well for our first year, or first attempt, I should say. The second one, we did a little bit better. So I just need, I do need a resolution to accept this if you guys so desire.
I'll make a motion that we approve both the forms for the Food Truck Festival, one for the tent sponsor at $75 and the other for the food truck participation for $175.
I just wanted to, I'll second that for discussion.
Okay.
So just, I know at the last one we had artists and some other folks there. Are we, like them and nonprofits, are we gonna be hitting them for a charge to set up, or what's your thoughts on that? And I know this could be developing, but I just was wondering what.
Well, we are still developing, but we're looking for things mostly for honor flight, so we wouldn't be looking to have another artist show for the June. And we haven't even looked at October yet, we're going to just focus on June. So, and when we get closer to October, I'll look for approval sometime over the summer in August, I would think. So no, we haven't, I mean, you have an opinion that you would like
Well, I'm
to
just
talk
saying,
to?
like, nonprofits, if they wanna set up, community organizations or whatever, are we going to charge them? That's, just a question.
The committee will just consider it.
Yeah, I just to put it out there, I'm, I don't know, Little League or whatever, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? If they want to set up something for, soccer, I don't know, if they're trying to get members or information out.
Oh, an information booth?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not talking about,
Good idea.
that someone is providing an actual service, obviously, they're
Right,
providing
because
service.
if they are, they're providing
They're
service, and they
ponying
should,
up,
yeah,
yes, I
and
got
right,
you.
they should.
But I'm just saying, like, those other groups that you'd want to have kind of included in it.
Community-based.
Community-based groups, and, anyway, just a thought, something to
Okay,
think
so
about.
you know what we'll do, we'll go back to committee and we'll discuss it, and we'll figure out where the parameters are, because once you
Yeah,
don't have parameters, it gets, and it grows, and the next thing you know, it's all over the place, right?
I know you're
So.
all about the rules, so you'll.
All about the rules. So, yeah, just, let us go back on that.
Yeah,
Let's-
absolutely.
First, we
I was
wanna get our,
expecting an answer, just to kind of put that thought out there.
wanna get our vendors in,
Great.
and we wanna make sure we have, all the other things in place first before, and then make sure we have enough space. I mean, there's
Sure.
nothing worse than having it, overcrowded, and, it loses the sense of what the purpose
Yeah, absolutely.
was. Okay, but, we'll come back, we'll definitely come back in the next couple of weeks, we'll have to, so if that's the way we go.
Yeah, no, listen, again, I'm not nitpicking, I mean, I just was, just a thought, and listen, the one in October was fantastic, you and Sal did an incredible job,
And Tony.
everyone else, and Tony that participated, but, it was great, so.
Great,
We're looking for another big success.
thank you.
Thank you.
I absolutely love these applications too, these revised applications are incredible. When these food truck owners see these, they're just gonna be,
Well,
I
what
love
we've done is we've condensed, and I'll, I don't know, Brian, if you have the new ones, did it go in your packet?
I have.
Okay. So what was happening was, the last applications, which were great, but they were long, and I wasn't getting all the pages back, and without a full application, it was really a burden to try and get everything, and I think there was 7 or 8 pages, so, this is a little bit more concise, and if if Brian has any other suggestions, I would welcome to add those onto
Yeah, I'll take it.
the form. Thank you.
Okay. Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Good night.
Okay, so moved.
So then moving on to the next thing, Monbassia Park field usage for 2019. I had sent a resolution in for your consideration.
Yep.
And do you want to read it, or would you
Yeah,
like me to
I'll
read
read
it?
it. The recommendation is to approve a resolution to allow the following organizations to utilize the fields at Monbassia Park for the 2019 season: MW Soccer, MW Little League, MW Crusaders Travel Baseball, and the OC Bombers Baseball. There's a $250 field usage fee for the two travel teams. There's an additional $500 refundable security deposit, and there's no charge for Monterey Woodbury Soccer and Monterey Woodbury Little League. But they do provide a bond, correct?
Mhm.
Yes, okay.
The field usage forms have to be in, the COIs naming the town of Monroe as additional insured, and then I'll complete the scheduling in another week or two. Once I get their scheduling, then I can schedule as well.
Okay.
And soccer did a bunch of upgrades over the.
Soccer was,
correct?
They did a
was
tremendous
awesome.
amount of
Tremendous,
work on
yeah.
that. They really did a lot of donations to us, and
Yeah.
they believe that they will continue with the fertilization schedule that they would like, and I mean, that's a huge savings for us.
That
Absolutely.
field was beat up after that food truck festival.
Not because of the food truck festival.
No.
It was beat up
It
before.
was beat up before.
before.
Okay, so then there's a motion there. for
I'll
approval.
second.
Seconded by Councilman Cancarello. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, so moved. Next up, you have the Y.
You know what, if you don't mind, real quick before that, I just want to let you know that the soccer and baseball fields will be opening soon, weather permitting. I have an Eagle Scout working on his Eagle Scout project and should be completed in the next 2 weeks, and it kind of piggybacks on the other conversation, although in a small sense. For the trails, he's working on marking the trails and putting pea gravel down with the help of the highway department, which we appreciate. He worked on some signage and a new informational board, so I think that'll be most helpful to do much like we saw tonight with having a nice map, and they can see where the trails go in the back of Monbassia Park.
Yeah, they
So
were pretty beaten up, I was back
They
there.
were, but
That's great.
it's
that
10
he's-
year, it was 10 years old,
Oh,
and
sure,
it was time
absolutely. Yeah.
to revamp it.
That's
So
great.
I'm happy that he's
Fantastic.
working on it. It's been a good couple of weeks, and he should finish up in another 2 weeks.
Great, thank you.
You want to discuss?
Okay, and the last thing, thank you, the last thing, I need a resolution to allow South Orange Family YMCA to utilize the O&R property as they have in the past for a Namaste Day, where they are looking for donations for their Strong Kids campaign. And that would be Saturday, June 1st from 10 to 12. They have also they will provide a security deposit, a usage fee, and they'll have I have the paperwork now, but they will provide that and insurance.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
The security deposits refundable, obviously, right?
Oh, always, as
Yeah.
long as there's no problem, and I don't anticipate any
And
problem.
usage fee is $50.
Right. Cologne, second.
Seconded by Councilman Cologne. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, so
That's
moved.
all I had, thank you.
All right, thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
All right. Dave, I know you've been sitting here. Come on up. I have it, so.
No, you don't.
Good job, so. Go ahead,
Thanks for
Dave.
the opportunity to be here tonight. So my name is Dave Jenkins. I work with a company called Millennium Strategies. I was lucky enough to run into Councilman Cologne at the recent Association of Towns conference in the city. And he asked that I come by to give a presentation, just an overview of the company and what we do. We work With 90 clients in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, we are a grant research and writing company. We work only with local governments. We have a team of 15 grant managers, constantly looking for new grant opportunities the town should be considering, writing the applications throughout the course of the year, and putting a strategic plan together for that year. In New York, we work with 8 clients, 6 municipalities in 2 counties. 2 counties are Rockland County and Nassau County. But really the bread and butter of our business, our best clients are municipal governments that range from 10,000 to 40,000 people. That's the majority of our clients. What we do is we want to be proactively writing. So that means working with your department heads one-on-one on a weekly basis, discussing new opportunities as they come about every Monday. We send you notices. And you'll see in the package there's an example of our research product. We have 2 individuals on staff that break down new opportunities, and they be federal, state, and foundation-based grants. Put them in a format after reading the guidance where you already have an understanding of whether or not it might be a fit for a particular project or a particular department that has a project of interest. We outline exactly what the potential grant maximum amount is, what the minimum amount is, how the funding priorities have changed from the prior cycle, matching requirements, whether that can be done in kind through staff labor, or whether it has to be a cash match associated and what percentage. Examples of previous awards, so taking a look at other towns and what they've done, how they've used the funding, and basically breaking it down in a manner where you can make a quick decision. Because typically with most grant programs, you have 30 to 60 days to respond. Consolidated funding application gives you 90 days, but that is a process that we try to align and get started on early during the course of the year each year. If you're not familiar with the CFA on the state level, there are about 20 core programs that local governments should be considering year in, year out. They touch a range of priorities, whether it be green infrastructure, security. They're literally looking at everything. I'm smiling because that Trails project that was just discussed earlier is a perfect fit for a program called the Recreational Trails Program. It's federal money that comes through the state. Maximum awards are about $200,000. There's a wide range of programs that towns can consider as part of the CFA. CFA is not the only thing we do. We want to be constantly writing, and that could be as small as a SNY Play Ball grant, which awards 12 basketballs, or it could be as large as a multi-million-dollar, Empire State Development, economic development initiative that you might have going. So that's just a brief overview. We've been in business for about 13 years. We formed in 2005 in New Jersey. Our office in New York is in White Plains, so not too far away in that regard. And it's a life of deadlines. So we'd love to work with the town if the town has an interest. One of the things that I would do is better familiarize myself with your needs, talk to a few department heads before getting a proposal, but Rick wanted me to come out and give you an overview of the service. There's also another document in that folder, which is an example of our standard monthly memo, which you would be receiving. As a part of that monthly memo, you have an outline of all grants that have been awarded through our service, all applications that are in progress, all applications were submitted and remain under consideration by the funding agency, and what hopefully is a really small list at the end of the year, grants denied. So we give you a full overview of everything that we're working on at any given time. So without further ado.
Can you give me
Sure.
an average cost breakdown versus the amounts that you're able to secure?
Sure. So across the board with our New York clients in 2018, return on investment was 45 to 1. That said, every town does change in terms of what that number means. Some towns might have been 5 to 1. Some of them might have been 100 or 125 to 1 based on the projects that were awarded. But typically we want to be writing 1 to 2 applications a month. And at the end of the course of the year, our success rate is about 40%. That ranges. There are federal grants that are extremely competitive, state grants as well, but we also are very familiar with foundation-based grants. 30% of the roughly 1,200 applications we write every year are foundation-based grants. So whether it be through the Baseball Tomorrow Fund, Major League Baseball, or U.S. Soccer Foundation, we're trying to lift up every rock we can to try to fund the project.
What towns in the area have you?
So we work with the town of Fallsburg, we work with the city of Beacon, we work with Rockland County as a whole. We work with 4 towns in Westchester County, that would be the city of Rye, town of Harrison, village of Mamaroneck, and the village of Port Chester, and then Nassau County as a whole.
David, sorry to hit us sit through
No,
through
no
this
problem.
for the last couple of hours. It's been a busy night, but listen, one of our certainly point of interest for us is the downtown revitalization grants. And I just looking through here, I saw there were a few. City of Middletown obviously been very successful here in Orange County, and it's something that's on our radar. So, what were your thoughts about that, and how do you achieve that type of success?
Very familiar with the program. It's a combination of efforts to make sure that you at least get in front of the REDC and then get the chance to interview. They do interview a handful of candidates each cycle. It will be funded again. Our understanding is that it's going to be out in May again. So similar timing, we'll see. Obviously that's up to the state when they roll it out. But I know it was funded as a part of this year's budget. Written many of them, we have to have a comprehensive plan, not only to have a strategy and a concept plan for how the money would be used, but to show you that the community is ready to handle the project and can take on that type of investment. The first year of that, it's a planning process where you're working directly with the state and their consultants to identify what the money will be used for. So $500,000, if it aligns with last year and the year prior, is solely for planning. $9.5 million would be for projects themselves, and they're unveiled the year after. That said, we want to, when you're writing that application, touching on vulnerable populations, identifying exactly what your needs are, and then defining how those needs might be met as a part of the DRI program. So it's a range. You have to know everything about the town through and through, and really utilize your comprehensive plan as well as the other plans that you have on file.
All right, great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
waiting.
you.
Thanks for
Not a problem.
presentation too.
Enjoy the rest of the
We'll
night.
talk.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
talk
Thank you,
soon.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Next item is, I'm gonna skip down from the 6.3. We'll go down to 6.7. It's a lease agreement for Dial-A-Bus. We have 4 buses that are gonna be delivered to us around March 22nd. So we need a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign the lease agreement with the county. It's for 3 2018 12-passenger buses and 1 2018 18-passenger bus.
I'll make that motion to sign that agreement.
Okay,
I'll second.
any other discussion? We did this for the other 2 that we recently got in, so.
Right.
Okay, no more discussion, call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Come on, aye.
Cardone abstain.
Skankerall, aye.
Again,
Okay, so moved. Memorial Day Parade, we need to approve the request from the Memorial Day Committee to provide 2 buses to shuttle passengers between Smith Clove Park and the Monroe Cemetery for the Memorial Day Parade taking place on Sunday, May 26th. It will involve some overtime for those drivers.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? It's something we've done every year. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Come on, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Skankerall, aye.
Begin.
Oh, begin aye. Sorry.
Okay.
A little out of order with my papers here. I'm just trying to get it back into.
Item 6.9, the Orange County CDBG grant application. We need to approve utilizing the services of Guyhausen Etzel for the preparation of the 2020 CDBG applications for the town of Monroe with a cost not to exceed $1,500. What it looks like we're going to be applying for is to upgrade the current town hall with respect to any ADA non-compliances that exist, and there are quite a few of them. So all those monies would be applied through McGuey Hauser and Edsel. The process has changed this year. Last year, we actually applied for 3 grants, and we only got 2 this year. The CDBG process only allows municipalities to apply for 1. So unfortunately, we had put in originally in talking for generators for both this building and Town Hall. The Town Hall one looked like it was going to be denied anyway, so we figured we'd go with the new building. We'd make sure we got the ADA compliance up to snuff. So I've spoke with Sean Arnott. He's going to be attending the meeting, which is, I think, this week, yeah, this Thursday. And as will Jennifer and Amory. They had signed up for it, so they're going to be there as well. So I just need a motion to approve McGuey Hauser and Edsel to prepare the CDBG application.
I'll make that motion.
And that's at a cost not to exceed $1,500.
Call in a second.
Seconded by Councilman Cologne. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
Begin I.
Okay, so moved. Okay. We need to make a motion to set a public hearing date for the amendment of local law number 4 of 2018. You want to discuss anything with that, Mary Ellen?
Just 1 second, Supervisor. Do we need to set a public hearing for the CDBG?
That's actually 6 point, that's actually 6.11.
Oh, okay, because I'm at 11. Okay, sorry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Okay.
Everybody's been stepping on my toes tonight, don't worry.
You're hopping around all over the place.
I'm not, I'm going in order now. Going in order now.
Like a scoreboard, you keep track of this.
I'm asking that we set a public hearing to amend local law number 4 of 2018, and that is the peddling and solicitation regulations. We approved last year a very large amendment to it, but there's some things that I went over with the attorney that I'd like to see changed and some things added. It does say that the town clerk will keep a list of properties that does not want solicitation. I would like that wording changed so it says Town of Monroe no-knock registry member list. We have developed a sticker that will go to the residents once they're done. I will mail them, that they will go on the house, that it will be identified besides the list that is given to the peddlers. They'll see what the sign looks like. There's quite a bit that I've redlined, and there's still probably a little bit more that I will do in the next day or 2. But I'd like to set a public hearing so we could amend this local law and have some things removed. We no longer give out a year peddler's permit. It's a 1 week, 1 month, or 6 month. So we need to change some wording in the law too. So we can set a public hearing.
What date did you want?
Next meeting would be fine.
Okay.
So make a motion that we set the public hearing for April 1st at 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
Begin I.
Okay. All right. Next, I'll make a motion to set the public hearing date to present the proposed project idea for the 2020 Community Development Block Grant application. I'd like to propose that on April 1st as well at 7:15 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Cologne. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
Begin I.
Okay. Marion, that also has to be published by the 25th.
I see it must be published on March 25th, so I will make sure that's taken care of.
Okay. All right, we're down to the RFP for electrician services. for the Town of Monroe Water District facilities. So you have before you the results. We had Joseph Warren, Trico Electric, and Delfino Electric. I believe Delfino is here, right? Okay, so, let's see, so right now the rate, I'll break it down like this. So the labor rate from Joseph Warren was $100 an hour with an apprentice rate of $50 an hour and an emergency rate of $150 an hour. And Trico Electric was a labor rate of $110 an hour, apprentice rate of $38 an hour, emergency rate call of $145 an hour. Delfino had a labor rate of $85 an hour, an apprentice rate of $85 an hour, and an emergency call rate of $85 an hour. And then there's also apprentice rates for emergency calls, holiday rates, and apprentice holiday rate. So what I'd like council to, I know you reviewed these, and there was some, I think there was an item that was missing from one of the companies, but everything's checked off, unless it was the bond.
No, there were items, the items are submitted that are checked off, that were required to be submitted on this. There was one issue with Joseph Warren Electrical. We had sent correspondence to the town on that review that, and again, this is not anything significant, it can be waived and corrected, but there was no check off on the compliance with the Iran Divestment Act, which is a state requirement that we obtain that document. There's two options, neither one was selected. And the other issue, and I'm not sure it's an issue, but that document was dated in January, which is before the proposal was issued. But since it's got to be corrected anyway, if that is who it's awarded to, then that's something that the town can waive pursuant to the language of the documents that were put out. The Joseph Warren submissions appeared to be complete. And with respect to Trico, they just had an error in identifying the type of entity. They didn't select corporation, but under individual wrote LLC, but then there's no, because they used that section, there's no title of the representative of the corporation. Again, it's an oversight that's correctable if the town board were to choose that applicant, just subject to them providing that information. So we don't review these for the financial part, that's for you and the town professionals, but there's really no legal impediment to awarding to whoever you choose, just that those items should be corrected if they're going to receive the award, and be contingent on that.
Okay.
I guess I understand that the bond was not required?
I don't believe the bond was
Certificate, yeah, it was
listed.
just certificate of insurance,
Yeah, I think this
right?
is probably a form that the town clerk uses, and in some
Right.
cases, bonds are required, some are not.
Okay.
Because this is not a project type thing where we normally get a bond.
Right.
It's pretty much as we needed service.
Just wanna make sure that,
Okay. Does anybody want to act on this tonight? Do you want to think it over, discuss it at our next meeting? What's the opinion of the board?
we can discuss it now, whether we decide to go forward with it is, just that looking at this, Delfino is obviously, from a financial perspective, comes in significantly cheaper in some of these categories. I know that they have previously worked on our water district facilities.
Yes.
So I think that's something that
Yeah.
we should really consider, plus they are local as opposed
Yep.
to the other
And we
two
haven't-
contractors.
We haven't had anything but, quality work done there, so.
Yeah, I have no problem if we wanna go forward approving this contract tonight, but it's.
Just let me say to the board, before you do that, and appreciate the comment, but the locality of the vendors was not a factor in the RFP, so that's not something that'd be considered by the town board.
Duly noted, Mr. Nugent.
one final thing, there was a
I
mandatory
retract
site,
that locality, statement.
Thank you.
there was a mandatory, site visit, and I did check with Ricky Beams, and all the vendors did go out with him.
Okay.
So that was also a qualification. But, based on the rates, I believe Delphina would be a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, based on the previous history and the rate,
Yeah, go on, gotta go on the
can't
rate.
see, why we would, not go in.
The emergency call rate and the holiday call rate are significantly cheaper too. I think
Yeah.
that's very important.
Yeah.
But the apprentice rate is much higher as well, but the other overall charges are much lower.
Yeah.
So at that point, folks,
I think I'd like to move forward tonight and.
Yeah.
let's move forward with this since we have it right now.
Let's do it.
Well, do you want to make a motion, Mary? You want me to make it?
You
Make
can
the
make it, I'll
motion.
second.
Sounds like a plan. All right, I'll make a motion that we accept Delfino's bid for the electrician services for the Town Monroe Water District's facilities.
And I will
Just,
second that
sorry,
motion.
make that subject to the receipt of proper Iran Divestment Act compliance form.
Oh, they didn't have it? I thought it was Trico that didn't have it.
I think it was Delfino.
No, I thought
No,
they did have
Delfino.
it.
Oh, all right.
That is, okay.
Yeah, it's just a check that was completed, but like I say, there's two options and neither one was checked.
Okay.
So one of them has to be checked. If the second
Okay.
one's checked, we couldn't award them the contract. So
All right.
we have to just receive that form and it's properly completed.
All right, pending the receipt of the Iran
Divestment Act.
Divestment Act.
Okay. Seconded by Mary. Any other discussion? Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scangarello, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved. Congratulations. You're gonna have to provide that form. You understand you have to provide that, the one form? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And I'd like to thank all
That's
of the
all your
other
Iran
contractors
holdings
that
there.
contributed their time.
Yes. Okay, next up is the RFP for plumbing services for the Town of Monroe Water District. We have Hauser Brothers that came in with a labor rate at 128, apprentice rate at 83, emergency call rate of 180, and an apprentice emergency call rate of 120. W&J Ebner, he came in with a labor rate of 150, apprentice rate of 45, an emergency call rate of 190, and an apprentice emergency call rate of 70. He did provide all the proper paperwork. Hauser did not provide his workman's comp or his certificate of insurance, but council has informed us that it's easily rectifiable if we do choose to go with Hauser Brothers. What's the opinion of the board?
I mean, W.J. Ebner has, we have a history with them working on the water district facilities. When you look at the comparison, their regular hourly labor rate is more, but then the apprentice rate, the emergency call rate, the apprentice rate, holiday rate, and holiday apprentice rates are considerably lower. Their markup is 20%, whereas Hauser's is 9%, which is
Considerable.
considerable. Yeah, assuming that's a good number. I'm not saying it's not, but it's just 20% is kind of the standard, I believe, for the markups. But we'll leave it at that.
I mean,
Like I said, we have a history with Ebner.
Yeah,
I think it balances out in the end. I'm not going to say that, I don't want to, location was not a specification of this bid. But
And also I just want to point out, you mentioned the insurance is missing. They also didn't comply with the required number of copies of the bid according to the sheet.
yeah, so it was a 9.
right, yeah, it's supposed to be 9. Okay. Well, what's the,
I mean, it seems pretty close. I mean,
I agree, Rick. It is.
Well-
We have a history with Ebner.
well, not only that, Ebner's, Ebner's 10 minutes away.
You can't say the local. You can't say.
I'm just saying that.
I listen, I hear you. Orangeburg, Monroe, I got
If we
you.
have an emergency call,
Right, but it wasn't one of the parameters.
It was not.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But-
But I think, listen, that aside, when you look at Ebner's history and, you know, while some of their rates are higher, I think on balance it will come out better, and they already know these districts, they've been working in them. I think it'd be a good choice for us to go with them.
Mr. Ebner knows these pump houses inside and out.
Yeah.
I can verify that. We've used them numerous times, and he has definitely done the town right for many years.
What the board also can consider, although, you know, again, our bid documents say that the town can waive, you know, oversights or issues collectively, you know, and I don't know either of these contractors, but you do have Hauser not complying with 3 different instructions in the bid documents. The number of copies, you got 1 instead of 9, no comp insurance and no certificate of insurance, naming the town as the additional insured. So collectively, you can note that as well, that, you know, you have a bidder that's, you know, it's not just a typo or a missing checkbox, you're missing the number of copies and 2 insurance certificates, which are obviously important. You know, while if economically you thought it was a better deal, you can, you know, waive that and make a contingent on submission of those documents, but you can also consider the fact that that bidder didn't comply with the instructions in rendering a determination.
Right.
Well, the one things I'd like to consider is that holiday rate. And that there is a difference there, and Ebner only charges $190 on a holiday rate, and Hauser charges $230. I'm just speaking from experience.
I was just gonna
Anything
put
that can go wrong does go wrong.
usually on a holiday rate, yes, I was just gonna say.
So, you know.
We've been out there on holidays.
Exactly.
January 1, 2018.
Yeah.
We're District 12.
So,
Yeah.
All right, so somebody want to make a motion then?
I mean, I think we should move forward with
Okay.
this.
Jay Ebner?
And, you know, I'll make the motion that we go with W.J. Ebner, W.N.J. Ebner to provide plumbing services for the town and rural water districts facilities.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay, so moved. Okay, we got 2 budgetary transfers. First one is for the building department. It's for $60. It's being transferred from account B 3620-4223, which is, hold on one second, sorry. That's their public safety and IT maintenance. It's going from that account to B 3620-4226, which is the public safety software maintenance, and it's a $60 transfer. So we need that approval. I'll make that motion.
You make it, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Colon. Any other discussion? Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Again, aye.
Okay.
Just real quickly, Mary, think you did a great job of getting these RFPs together, and it was a long process, so.
And my thanks to Mr. Nugent, because
And
he had
Mr.
to put up
Nugent,
with.
of course, too. and
Yes, thank you, Mary. Appreciate the
Thank you
effort.
very much.
And the water districts appreciate it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up is the budgetary transfer for the Highway Department. We're going from snow fuel, which is DA 5142-4304, which has a balance of $10,576. We're transferring an amount of $1,063.80 to a sand account, which was zeroed out, DA 5142-4356. And again, that amount is $1,063.80. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarella, aye.
Again, aye. John, did you go through all your sand?
Yeah, I had to actually order some more. We used it a couple storms, especially these ice storms. A lot of ice, yeah.
He thought he was gonna have enough to get him through the year, from last year, right? Yeah.
Good, you're using that in the mix.
We was, well, you know,
Good.
you can use it sometimes, sometimes you can't. Depends on the temperature, really.
Right,
and,
gotcha.
You know, I mean, what it's gonna do for you, but we mixed it in with the snow that was on the roads, and it seemed to work with the ice that came, you know, past the snow, so.
Awesome.
But we had a lot of ice this year, and we went through a lot of product, there's no question about it, but, we're okay now. Stopped snowing for a while.
Yeah.
Not over.
Let's hope.
All right, I'm gonna skip over the zoning board of appeals, we'll come back to that, I wanna write the public comment. So, if you wanna read the public comment? Val?
You guys confirm for 6.3, you said you're gonna come back, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that too, yeah.
Maureen Crissar?
Thank you for your patience and waiting,
I have handouts for the board.
thank you. There's no cash again.
No cash, promise, no cash. My name is Maureen Cassard, and I'm a resident of the town, and I live in Round Lake Park. And I have some pictures I'd like to show you. That's the view from my backyard. I have endured for over 2 years the flagrant violation of multiple town codes. Even though the inspector has been out, they comply somewhat, but within a couple of weeks, everything is back. They work on cars late at night, disturbing the peace. On Sunday, I counted in that backyard 6 cars, 1 truck, 1 golf cart, 4 trailer hitches, 2 quads, 4 riding tractors, 6 lawnmowers, 1 snow blower, piles of tires, parts of mechanical vehicles strewn all around, wood and metal pieces on the ground and up against the trees, and tarps covering materials that look like they're motor parts. Additionally, in order to make room for this, my neighbor plowed his property, which runs right next to the creek that feeds into Round Lake Park, which is my understanding is a wetland. He put down a black substance on the ground and then covered it with pebbles. As a result, the water runoff on my property is extensive. I've always had a problem in one little corner, but by mid-May, it's completely dry. So the full extent as to whether or not I'm going to have a long-term problem, I won't really know until I get to May or June. I'm not an expert on the codes. I'm going to leave that to the person who knows that information. But I've come up with at least 9 different code violations that he has been enacting on. I cannot enjoy my backyard. In the summer, I cannot sleep. I do not have air conditioning. I don't need it for the most part. I have my windows open. But the revving of engines and motors, no one can sleep. They start doing things at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it goes on into sometimes as late as midnight. Besides the inconvenience, I'm sure that this is also impacting upon the value of my home. I don't plan on selling in the immediate future, but at some point, I'm sure I'm going to go south like a lot of people. But for the time being, I am here, and I want to enjoy the property that my husband and I have worked hard to keep up, and not understand why we need to look at this mess. I'm hoping that the laws that are on the record already are enough to get them to clean up the mess. I don't expect it to be White House lawn perfect, but I don't expect to see all these tools and all this equipment and all this noise throughout my entire year. So I thank you very much for listening to me, and if there's anything you guys can do to help me, I would greatly appreciate it.
And just so you're aware, I had discussed this, because you had brought this to my attention last week. I have discussed this with our code enforcement, Ben Maldonado. He was supposed to do a drive-by this afternoon. I'm not sure whether he did but he will address it first thing in the morning if he did not, so.
Most of those pictures were from this weekend. There are a couple from February,
How long has this gone on?
over 2 years. The noise actually started under Sandy Leonard, not she started it. My first letter of complaint was back when she was supervisor, and at that time, he was only 12 years old, and he and his friends were driving quads all over that, you know, like a little terrain. So it's been a while, and it's progressed. There are so many cars, there's some of them definitely have license plates, but I'd be questioning whether or not they all belong to him. There's only 3 adults in that family. When I left to come here tonight, 3 more cars were dropped off. I don't know if they were visitors or if they were going to be left there. It'd be too dark by the time I get home to find out if they're staying for a while. So, but I really would appreciate your help. I know my neighbors with small children would appreciate your help. And, you know, it's just not right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, do you know if the vehicles that are on the property, do you know if any are unregistered?
Yes,
or-
there are some that are unregistered. There are some that are not drivable. The golf cart has been there at least 6 or 7 months. And it's, you know, it's just, it's an eyesore. You can see the pictures.
No, it doesn't look
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
that's obviously what
Yeah. Well,
We'll follow up.
We'll follow up with the building inspector and code enforcement folks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience
Yeah,
on waiting.
thanks for coming.
Vincent Asaro?
What's that? Yeah.
Yes, for the record, my name is Vincent Azaro. I'm Maureen Cassard's neighbor. She pretty much covered everything. Some of those pictures were from my property as well. She stated everything that needed to be stated. What my concern is that, you know, I'm in Round Lake Park 26 years myself, as past president of the Homeowners Association, Board of Directors. All the neighbors, all the members, we all made a diligent and voluntary effort to maintain the bucolic scenery at Round Lake. The beachfront property, the sand was always replenished and cleaned, the grounds were always kept pristine. What Maureen said was, as far as resale values, the only thing I can say is, it becomes an issue for the homeowner, the realtor, and the prospective buyer. Round Lake Park, we maintained it to attract families because of the surroundings. It's a tree line, a lot of different style houses. It's a perfect community. And to see what this gentleman has done, you know, it creates a lot of issues. It also, like she said, could bring down the property values. How do you explain as a homeowner to a prospective buyer? How does the realtor explain it? You know, these are a lot of the issues, a lot of just the quality of life issues. And that's all I need to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Betty.
Mike Goldstein?
Good luck. Thank you, Mike Goldstein, Village and Town resident. As far as I know, the effects of the new comprehensive plan, which affected the zoning in the RR1 Rural Residential District, has not been corrected yet.
Mike, pull that mic down, would you please?
Start over?
No, that's fine.
Okay. It creates a hardship for anybody who's in that, who needs to get a building permit now, because they're gonna have to spend extra money. But more importantly, there's not a bank in the country that will make a mortgage on properties which are no longer compliant. So if these people want to sell their houses, they better come up with somebody who has cash. Otherwise, their prospective buyers will not be able to get a mortgage. At the last town board meeting, watching the videotape, I think it was disingenuous to be talking about not hiring ex-politicians when this board hired an individual to be on the planning board who was in effect a de facto town councilman. He was certainly one of the big people who were involved in a political party, not to be named. So I don't think that was right.
Ward Brower?
Ward Brower, private citizen. You can start your clock. I know you didn't do it for the first two. If you did it for Mike, you might as well start for me. I'm waiting, patiently waiting for to be on the agenda, a grandfather clause for the builders, 40,000 square feet. I've been waiting over a year now. I heard last time from a couple of councilmen that they worked hard correcting problems from the former supervisor. And it took a lot of time. Granted, it took a lot of time. I know that our very able attorney could probably get a grandfather clause in 5 minutes, probably do it in his sleep. A lot of people were affected by this legislation, and it ought to be changed. I too took offense. That sounded like it was partisan politics last time, when a person was not allowed to come up and be nominated to be on a town board because that person happened to be an ex-politician. That's like equating ex-politicians with ex-cons. Because you served as a politician, you lose part of your citizenship and rights to serve on a board. I think there's something wrong with that. Sounds like partisan politics to me. Should consider that, especially that person I happen to know is very fair, left office with a good record, hardworking, able, conscientious, and dedicated individual. Should have been considered for a board appointment. But I have never seen a piece of legislation or heard of one that says that if you're an ex-politician, you cannot be put on a board. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all?
That's it. I'll respond real quick to, regarding the appointment, I can't really see over there, Ward, but I'll just say this, and I stated at the last meeting, there was nothing partisan about it. We have turned down requests from other people that previously held board positions that were from our own party. And basically, and this wasn't a, I know you're talking about Ms. Kimmons. Listen, I salute her for the job she did in the legislature, what she did here in the town, but we wanted to go in a different direction and wanted to have new faces and new ideas. It certainly wasn't anything against her, and again, there were people from the former boards that wanted to be part of the current boards that we did not take on. So certainly not a partisan issue, just an issue of, we want to break from the past and go with what, with the new face that we have on this board. And we've only been talking about this, I think, for the last 2, maybe 3 meetings about the grandfathering issue, and it's something we're going to look into, and it's not something, while Mr. Nugent is an able attorney, and I'm sure he can figure that out, it's not quite, just to kind of take a little walk down memory lane, the previous, and I think maybe you'd been on the comprehensive plan board back in '05 or whatever it was, none of that ever got enacted, and none of it got passed. We were able to do it in 18 months, so we've proven that we can get things done, and we'll get this done as well.
Anybody else? Councilman Cologne, who's speechless?
For once, yeah, of course.
Okay.
We just want to move things along.
Good, absolutely. Okay. That said, going back to 6.3, which is building at 11 Stage Road. The plans for Etch-Kayam had fallen through up in Goshen, and they had asked to be reconsidered for using the space at 11 Stage Road. I go back to our initial thoughts with them about it 8 months ago, where we had discussed renting the space to them. Thank you for coming tonight, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will follow up with you tomorrow, Wednesday morning. Thank you.
And the space, they want to remedy the space. We want to do a license agreement, and it's $1,500 per month for the space. And like I said, they will incur, you know, all the expenses pertaining to it, the use of the facility. So I have a resolution before me. They're looking to do this ASAP because they're crunched for time, and it's actually beneficial for us if we do it quicker, because the quicker they vacate the current town hall, the quicker we're able to begin renovations there.
Understood.
So, you know, before making the motion, I just want to see what the purview of the board is.
I think they're in a pretty tight spot, and I would like to help out. It also helps the town, helps them. They're all local people, they're part of this community. I have no problem with this issue.
Okay.
And so we had a good relationship with them while we
They
were
very
their tenants, and I think it's
very
the least we can
accommodating
do.
to us.
Yeah, it's the very least we could do is help them out in this bind that they're in. It's a relatively short term.
And the building is empty to begin with.
The building is empty, yes, and we're not incurring any of the costs.
And they're gonna make improvements to it.
Right,
So
they'll be
put a
doing.
floor in, paint it, and do some other improvements, so.
And we can get to work on that time.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, there's the added benefit of more people coming into the village, so they'll see
Yes.
the other
Yes.
stores there, and what's
Absolutely.
going on, so more foot traffic.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I think it's a good option for us.
Council, my only question, I know this falls under our oversight with respect to use of the building. I think it would probably be prudent if we at least reach out to the village and let them know our intentions prior to them maybe taking occupancy, just so they're aware.
We can do that, I mean, it would be,
courtesy.
it's a use issue, it'd be their issue, but obviously you'd rather know that before you enter the license agreement, so,
Yeah.
you know, we can do that as part of this resolution and just add that if it's gonna be you, that you'll be authorized to contact the village and
Okay.
discuss it with them.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so I'll read the resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute a license agreement with the Monroe Jewish Community Center. Now therefore be it resolved that the whereas clauses are hereby incorporated by reference as those set forth in full. Section 2, the town supervisor is hereby authorized to execute a license agreement in a form acceptable to the town's legal counsel for a period of up to 1 year with payments of at least $1,500 per month. Such license shall be renewable at the option of the town for additional periods after the 1 year period. The town clerk, section 4, I'm sorry, the town clerk and any other official employees are authorized to take any and all necessary actions to carry out the provisions of this resolution. In section 5, this resolution shall be effective immediately, and I'd like to put this resolution for a roll call, but this is the motion first, so I need a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Cologne. Anybody else have anything to say? Discussion? No? Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
McGinn, aye.
Okay, so moved. And I will obviously put this before the village, just to, as a courtesy, to make sure that the use is proper within their eyes. Okay. Last item, zoning board of appeals fee schedule. Okay.
I reached out to Mike, and it's only been a week, because I got delayed sending my email to him, but I told him the section of board docs where he could actually view it, and I gave him all the information as to why we thought commercial versus residential, so I'm just waiting for a reply from him.
Okay. All right, good. Anything else? Any need for attorney-client, executive session, personnel or anything? No? No? No, okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
What took so long?
Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scankarello, aye.
Begin, aye.
Okay, so moved.